three points that I wanted to talk about. So throughout my swimming career for almost 15 years, on multiple occasions, I mean, Rehan can vouch for this, I, was the only woman on the team, girl on the team, be it training, be it national camps, be it international events. Uh, Before the 2008 Olympics, a bunch of us went out to train in Australia, and we actually lived and trained in an all boys school for, multiple months at a stretch. And, even during national camps, or any training camps, majority of the coaches were male coaches, and there were just very very few training camps, I think predominantly for the Asian age group events, or maybe the SAF games, where we had like a lady coach there. So the point I'm trying to make is that, as a lot of times as a woman swimmer, I was on my own. If you think about national camps, if you think about how SAI is set up, like the women, live separately, eat separately, and the men and the boys are, doing their thing separately. And so a lot of times, you in between training sessions, you're spending your time all alone in that room, especially during camps. And when I look back now, I mean, those months and months of training at camps, those definitely made me mentally stronger and emotionally stronger. Uh, but in that moment, just trying to get past that emotion that you were feeling in that moment, be it you're missing home, or you just, you're lonely because you have no one else to talk to. All of that just added a very different layer of challenge to what I was doing, which I think was a little different from the boys, simply because, the coaches are there, you eat lunch with the coaches, you talk to them, you can go to each other's room, and, you hang out, socialize in between sessions, which I think wasn't the case for me on a lot of occasions. And so while that made me tougher, it added an added level of complexity to that, that whole routine or the whole challenge. And so I think Nyasa mentioned this, not Nyasa, sorry, I think Sandeep mentioned this, how he, when he started coaching, he, used to be pretty goofy with the athletes, and that, helped them relate to him and help him relate to them, and made him more approachable. And so that's one of the points I definitely want to touch on, is just approachability of the coach. Because in situations like this, you want the coach to be approachable, so that if you're facing a challenge which is not something that they can see or that is unique to you, like you as a girl athlete or a woman athlete, or any swimmer, in fact, needs to be able to approach that coach and be able to honestly talk their mind and just talk about what they're feeling. Because at the end of the day, how you feel emotionally, psychologically, physiology, like everything, all that matters, and all that impacts in some shape or form how you train. How you train obviously impacts how you compete. So, it's a little things, but they all add up. So as a coach, I would definitely stress on, being approachable, be in that position where your athletes are not, afraid to come and talk to you or open up to you about, what they're feeling. And just kind of moving from that approachability, moving into specifically like women athletes, right? I mean, they, like if you talk about personal issues, right? The first thing that comes to mind is, menstruation. It's something that when women hit, or girls hit puberty, it's something that you can bank on, that is going to happen or should happen every month for a week of that month. And that impacts how you train, it impacts how you feel. And I don't think too many coaches, one, have the discussion with those athletes as to how they're feeling in that 1 week. They don't talk about, how they can potentially modify the training for that week. They don't talk about logistics that, the athlete has to navigate during that 1 week. If you have a competition that 1 week, like how do you approach that beforehand, knowing fully well that that's, the timing is going to clash on things like that. And I'll give you simple examples, like obviously in that one, we're in swimsuits, right? We're in and out of the water during our practice or during our event. So how do you factor for that, if you are competing or training during your menstrual cycle? And, things like you have to deal with bleeding, right? And it's, a lot of people feel shy to even say that, but it is such a natural phenomenon. It's such a natural part of who we are. And talking about bleeding, like how does an athlete navigate a training camp? How does a woman athlete navigate competing? Because you have to go much in advance for your heats. And how do you think about those things, right? How do you prep a girl who's 13, 14, 15, 16, just navigate this process? They're learning as they go. And, as a coach, if you're there to help them and support them, just kind of guide them through it, I think it makes a huge difference. And I think a lot of times we talk about, and I've seen this in the questions as well, you talk about, why are women athletes or girls dropping off the sport at the age of, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, whatever that is. And if you think about it, like, that's the age range that girls are hitting puberty. And if you're not able to talk to them about these things, they are not comfortable being in a swimsuit, they're not comfortable being at the pool, they're going to drop off. So when people say that education is the one, that the biggest killer of, sports in India, especially swimming, I think that's a very, very incomplete statement, because I don't think we factored for the different aspects of puberty for both girls and boys, during these teenage years. And that's when we see the maximum drop off, and that's when we see the maximum changes also happening. So I think, again, approachability, be able to talk about personal things which impact your training, and also, kind of moving from the whole, menstruation and puberty aspect, think about body image issues, right? I think that is another topic which is very important, hardly spoken about, not factored in when you think about swimming. Okay. And I think in general, like, there is, there's body image issues. And then I think it's a whole different level when you're in a swimsuit day in and day out, surrounded by people, and you're going through changes that you yourself are, dealing with, trying to understand every single minute, and everything's new for you, right? In that moment, be it a boy or a girl. And I think for the girls, it's slightly more elevated, simply because, your body is going through all these physical changes as well, way more than what it is for the boys. And so to be able to, navigate that. And also with women, I mean, these are examples that I'm going to give you right now. Some of them you may not want to hear, some of them, may be hard to hear, but trust me, it's harder to say and kind of bring to your attention. But I think it needs to be said. Things like, I've had my neighbors tell my parents, that Shikha has, she's too muscular, like nobody will marry her. And I was, I think, like 15 or 16 at the time. Like, these are not things you want to hear. So what I'm trying to get with is, it's not always just, the issue with an education or the issue with what that one athlete is facing. It's also, there are so many different external factors that play into why these girls quit their sport or quit swimming when they do. And things like, you're getting tanned, you're in the sun, you're training, and getting tanned in India is, a big taboo topic. And I know, like, one of my teammates actually quit because her grandmother felt that she was too tanned. And so it's not that the girl wanted to stop, but her grandmom said absolutely not. And when you're 14, 15, like, what do? Someone has to take you to the pool, right? It's not like you can just go on your own. And so that's why she stopped. And so these are examples, from my own experiences. And I also want to, just kind of spinning off a little bit on this, Nihasa mentioned that, create an environment where champions are inevitable. And I think part of that environment is safety. You have to create that safe environment. And this is the point where I said, not too many people are going to want to hear this. But think about it, right? When you're in a pool, and these are all from my own personal experiences, and everything that I'm telling you I have faced, when you're in a pool, some clubs have, where the swimmers are training in 3 lanes or 4 lanes. They have a section of the pool, and the other section is, like for general public to come and swim. And I mean, Rehan knows how rowdy that, general public can be. And things like, you're swimming, and then you have these random people, men, typically they're coming and they're hanging onto the lane line where the girls are swimming, just because they want to accidentally, touch their arm, or they're going underwater and they're looking at you and they're like adjusting their goggles underwater. Like, these are things that happen, right? And when you're a girl, when you're 14, 15, 16, when you are swimming and you're seeing this, right, it impacts you emotionally. It impacts your, just your mental being, because as I said, it adds a whole different level of complexity and whole different level of challenges that, maybe the boy swimming in the lane next to you is not necessarily facing. Okay, that's just one of them. And then things like, like climbing over the pool wall. I mean, we've had people like trying to climb over the pool wall just to see us in our swimsuits. I've had people, hiding and, like peeping inside the changing room. And again, this boils down to the aspect of, coaches being approachable, because when stuff like this happens, you want your athletes, one, it should never happen. That's the first thing. And two, if it does, the reality is that it does happen. And when this does, you want your athlete and your swimmer to come and approach you and talk to you about the things that are actually going on, because the truth is, for every one person that says it, there's at least one more that hasn't. So you don't want to create that environment in the pool which is, considered unsafe for the swimmer. And I speak of all of these things from personal experience, because just think about it, right? If everyone here has, either a sister or a daughter or whoever, I mean, if you know that they are going to an environment that is deemed unsafe, like, would you let them go? Chances are no, right? And it's the same thing. If you don't have a safe environment in the pool, either the parents may not want to send you, and that boils down to that external factor, or internally you're just going to feel that, I don't need to be here, I don't need to put myself through this, and then you quit. So these are just like, a few high level things that I wanted to talk about. Happy to take questions at the end, dive in a little more on these three topics. And, even if you'll want to talk about, what I do currently, or what it's like to navigate from that, competitive swimmer to, a post-career professional, I'm happy to talk about that. But I think for now, I'll let Rehan do the talking. And thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much, Shikha, for sharing your view, and it was wonderful to know you from the girls' point of view also. It's very important for every coach to understand how a swimmer feels. This is part of our job also, to understand their psychology, their feel. And you point out some of the very current topic, which a coach should know about girls. Our next speaker is Rehan Poncha. So Rehan is an Olympian in 2008 Beijing Olympic in 200-meter butterfly. He is a Arjun awardee in 2010, who has brought glory to India on most prestigious international arenas. As a six-time national champion, Rehan has been named India's best athlete at two national games. He has gained popularity and brought attention to swimming as a sport with his TV appearance as a presenter for Star Sport coverage of the Olympic Games. And he is an eminent motivation speaker as well. Rehan's own personal journey is an inspiring one too. From the bronchitis, by beating bronchitis in the root level in his childhood, and the natural disadvantage of being a premature baby to become an Olympian is a great journey for himself also. So we welcome Rehan Poncha. Welcome, Rehan.
Thank you, Parthasa, and very good morning to everyone who's tuned in to this talk. Shikha, I think, spoke on some very, very important topics. That was very well said, Shikha, and I don't think any speaker has touched upon some of the topics you did today. So very, very lovely to hear and see you. Apart from so many Indian coaches that I haven't really seen for over, I think, close to 8 years. My last competitive race was in 2012. And after that, I've not stepped into a swimming pool at a national meet. So to just be reconnected with all, I'm seeing 600 of you here, swimmers and coaches, feels very nice. And I'm a single child. I have no brothers and sisters. So I'm pretty much alone at home, apart from my parents. And I'm watching everybody in their home environment. There are people eating breakfast. There was a coach cutting vegetables until he realized that he was on camera, that I did take a picture of. And it's just nice to see all of Indian swimming here collected together, and very humbling that y'all are collected to hear our opinion. And what I am about to say is actually a combination, and I think I've been very lucky where I have got to be on both sides of the fence, where for 20 years I swam competitively, and for the last 7 years I have now been coaching. I don't know how many of you know this, because the coaching that I do is very sporadic. It is just some weekend workshops and consultation with swim teams around the country, as well as a few one-on-one sessions with swimmers around India. So I have understood, though I have not coached for as many years as a lot of you have, senior coaches especially, I have had the good fortune of connecting with many swimmers, and on a whole different levels, be it district level, state, national and international. And since I've been given 15 minutes or so to speak, I thought that I could talk about challenges for 200 hours, but that we faced and the things that have changed. But I have chosen 2 topics that I'd like to speak to you about. And before I start, I want to say that I personally have been very lucky to have trained with, apart from the top coaches in the country who I met at national camps, 2 of India's probably best coaches, which is Neha sir and Pradeep sir, in my career. And abroad, I got to train for 6 months in 2004 with one of Australia's top coaches, and in 2010 before the Commonwealth Games with Dave Salo, who at the USC, who was training world record holders. And so my knowledge that I'd like to share with you today are a combination of all these experiences I have had as a swimmer and a coach. For senior coaches here, if I am saying something that you already know, I'm sorry. But this is primarily for junior coaches that are here because they'd like to learn. So no offense taken, please, but these are my experiences. I'll get down to one specific that I felt was a challenge during my training time and is still a challenge today that swimmers face. Okay. And though I had the benefit of not facing this challenge, really, I feel swimmers today continue to face them. And I'm going to get straight down to the point, which is, I truly believe that today, young swimmers do not get enough race practice. Okay. Now, when I say this, I'm going to dive deeper into this topic a lot deeper. The best example to give you is my experience as a coach, where I, for example, travel and I meet with swimmers, and I'm not talking only about, I'm talking about even national champions. And I meet with parents, and on an average, the one thing that every swimmer says is, and I'm not generalizing, I'm talking about specific teams and swim teams that I have got to train with, is that they don't get enough race practice. Now, the best question, the reason I understand this is because, for example, when I ask a child, what event you're racing? So he says, I'm racing the 200-meter backstroke. So I go ahead and this is before I start training him. I ask him, do you have a race plan? And he very confidently says, yes. And then I ask him, okay, what's your race plan? Do you have splits? And he still says, yes, I know the splits I want to hit through my race. Then I ask him, what is your stroke count going to be? What's your breathing pattern going to be? How many kicks are you going to do off each wall? And then that kid is clueless. Okay, I ask him, how much percentage of energy do you want to put into the 4 different 50s that you do, breaking up the 200 meter, say freestyle, for example. And he's clueless again. And the reason I thought this is very important is because this is the one thing that made the biggest impact on my swimming career. Of course, I had to get to a point because of coaches from Bombay, with Neha sir and then Pradeep sir, to be good enough to qualify for the Olympics. But I think that the one thing that really pushed me over the finish line to hit my qualifying time was this specifically. And to give you an example, I trained with Neha sir from 1999 to 2004, which is where he pretty much resurrected my entire career. I came to Bangalore, not being able to qualify for a single national event. In 6 months, he made me national champion. And I remained national champion for several years after that. In 2004, I moved to Pradeep sir. And we worked very hard for 3 years to get my endurance up and to build up, lots of base endurance and have me ready to try and hit certain qualifying times for the Olympics leading into 2008. But the one thing that we did differently leading into 2008 was, and for those of you who don't know, I was preparing for the 200-meter butterfly. And up to that point, all we had ever worked on or discussed was the splits that I wanted to hit. And then we would base my training off my splits. For example, I had to race 2 minutes in the 200-meter butterfly. And my split in my head was I have to open in 26 seconds. And then I have to do 350s after that at 31, 31, 31. Okay. So when we trained race pace work in the pool, we would do enough workouts to be able to, with rest between each 50, hit those targets where I would be able to dive a 27 or a 26 and then hit a 31, 31, 31. And as a result of that, what happened was I started in races leading up to the qualifying, getting better and better and better. So in every race that I swam, I would hit the first 50 target and I would hit my second 50 target. And then I would not hit the third 50 target. So then we went back to the pool and we continued sharpening, improving my race endurance, and a lot of workouts that were otherwise done with a lot of just aerobic endurance work were replaced by specific race-based training, up to a point where I finally hit my split for the third 50, which was 31 seconds. Then we went back again, and what we realized is the number of strokes I was doing for that third 50 was too many. So I was doing over 28 strokes for that third 50, which is why, and I'm talking about butterfly, which is why my fourth 50 was always slow. So what we finally did 3 months, and this is the last bit of the example I'm going to give you, what we finally did 3 months leading into the last qualifier I had was, I would swim day in and day out 50 meters of butterfly from a push at 31 seconds with a stroke count of 23. So in my head, when I went to qualify, I knew that when I pushed off the wall for that third lap, I knew what my breathing pattern needs to be, not only to do 31 seconds, but to also do it in 23 strokes. I knew what my body needs to feel like to hit those 23 strokes. I knew how many kicks I needed to do off each wall. So I had enough air to do that 31 seconds in 23 strokes. And the reason I'm being so specific here is because I really feel that today a lot of coaches do not get so deep into preparing an athlete for a specific event. And it is, of course, because of some uncontrollable factors where I remember Sandeep said that he's training 40 swimmers in 3 lanes. So it is very difficult when you have a limited amount of space to do this. But then there are swim teams around India where coaches get the entire pool and they get all 8 lanes to train in. And this is where I think we need to make a little more use of our training space where, and this is only through personal experience of people I've met, where it is today priority still for a lot of young coaches to decide at the beginning of the week that I want to hit 70 kilometers this week. For example, I want to do 11 sessions and I want to hit 70 kilometers or 75 kilometers. And Shikha mentioned this where you need to approach your coach and the coach needs to be able to adapt or change his workout. Of course, she said it for different reasons. And I find that there are a lot of coaches who are very stuck in their thinking, where if they've decided they want to hit a certain yardage or kilometers in total for the week, they will not change any workout to adapt to what the swimmer is feeling or needs at that point in time in his training cycle. Okay, I may be very emotional and I may be very direct about this, but I have 15 minutes, so I'm going to make the most of this. And I really feel that this is something that really benefited me. So for young coaches, remember that yes, endurance and base endurance and hundreds of kilometers is extremely important in off season and even during training season to build up a foundation for your athlete to perform through racing season. But as your athlete gets closer and closer to competition, and I don't only mean the last 2 weeks of taper, I also mean 4 months out. I also mean 3 months out. Okay, make time, at least 2 sessions every week, if not more, where it is race specific training done. And at the end or through any workout that you do, there has to be one element, right, where you do something connected to the athlete's race. Otherwise, we are going to continue in 2020 having swimmers who are racing at the top level, but still don't know what their breathing pattern needs to be. And on race day, when an athlete comes to you and says, so what is my plan for the race? Yes, you have a plan for him. You may tell him that in the third 50 or in the last lap of your race, you need to breathe a certain way, or you need to add on your legs. But if that child has not practiced that day in and day out in the pool, how does he know he needs to feel this or is even physically ready to replicate this in a pool? Okay, so what I do personally as a coach is my swimming sessions are very, very specific to what the athlete is doing around his event. I don't have the physical time to be there to see an athlete through a year of training. So when I train, it's always to the point, specific. I send my swimmer back understanding what he needs to do in every part of his race, broken down from splits to stroke counts to breathing patterns, and even more if you as a coach want to. And it's not that it makes your event more complex or the child has too many things to think about, but the kid, if he's done this day in and day out in the pool, it will happen automatically. So the topic is challenges of swimmers in the past and present. Like I said, I trained with brilliant coaches who did this for me, which is why I performed at the level I did. But in the past and even today in the present, this is, I think, one of the biggest challenges that swimmers face. And there are no questions on dedication of coaches here. Coaches are here morning and evening. They work way harder than swimmers do. And then there are swimmers who are showing up at practice also with their time to train. So if you can have a few things that you adjust or replace in your program with something like this or more of this, I think this point is, my time speaking on this point is well spent. So the reason I finally qualified was because the day I did that 2 minutes and 1 second, I hit my third 50 in 31 seconds and 24 strokes, exactly to what I had trained, because my body was like a robot. It knew what it needed to do when I got off that second turn. Okay, so I've split my time between one thing that is extremely specific to training, and the second thing I'd like to talk about, and this is the only other topic, is the change I see, and this is a positive change, is that swimmers today have access to a lot more professionals that contribute to their sport than we did. I started swimming at the age of 7. The first time I met a physical trainer that was a physical trainer and not just a swimming coach was 1 year before 2008. So that was close to 15 years of my swimming where I had never had a physical trainer who was only a physical trainer and not also a swimming coach. I never had a nutritionist through my career. I never had a physio through my career. We would sometimes walk over to other countries' massage, and Shika will remember this, other countries' massage areas and request another masseur from another country to give us a massage before a race, right? So today I see that these things have changed. Swimmers do have access to nutritionists, physiotherapists, fitness trainers, and so many more. But the swimmers that I'm talking about that have access to this are very limited in number. And they are only the cream of the country. They are the best in the country, or they are ones that come from privileged money backgrounds or part of rich swim teams. But when you're looking at 700 swimmers or close to 800,000 swimmers participating at a national championship, and then you have only the finalists who have access to this, we stand on a huge advantage over the rest of the country. I've always said this, with my physical ability, I had some talent, I worked very hard. I had a big heart, I think, when I raced. I may not have necessarily been the most promising or one of the most talented swimmers in the country. I just had more opportunities. Because when I was racing with, 5 other boys who don't have a proper, not even eating proper food, or not even racing in the trunks that I am racing in or I can afford, and don't even have access to a Pradeep Kumar or a Nia Ramin, I am already at an advantage. So the point is, it is a very positive change that I am seeing from swimmers of the past to swimmers today, where there are brilliant nutritionists available, physical trainers available, and so on and so forth. But we have to, as a swimming fraternity, make these professionals accessible to many, many, many more swimmers. Now, you can talk about money and lack of funds in Indian sport forever and ever and ever, and you can always complain. But there are swim teams today, and there are parents today who have these funds. Okay, so if you have the fund and you have the scholarships and the sponsorships, all I'm saying is redirect it also toward people like this. And if you're in a swim team, which can, if parents can pull together, or if an administration can pull together and hire 3 nutritionists for yourself and to work one-on-one with your team, hire physical trainers who are physical trainers for swimming and not just also coaches doubling up because they have no option for the swimmers. Like Nia sir, you would finish a practice and then come in the gym and help us lift weights. Pradeep sir would also do it. And the first time I had a physical trainer working with me was Richard. He from Chennai. He came in 4 months before the Olympics. 4 months before. And I feel that made such a big difference in me qualifying again. So today you have so many experienced people out there. And this is, I think, for the administration, mainly of Indian swimming, this little bit, we have to figure out a way where more people and our swimmers have more access to this. And this is the first step. If this is a knowledge series where you have athletes and coaches listening in to experts from around the country, I really hope this does continue, because this is the first step toward experts and more swimmers having access to our opinions. Okay, so this was my talk. It was very short. Many people have joked and said Rehan can go on for 2 and 3 hours, and I can. But since this is I can see also Vidhaval has joined, and I'm sure all of you all are waiting to listen to him. This was my little bit, guys. I am very active on social media and on Instagram. So if you all do have any follow-up questions, because I know this time is not enough, I may take a little while to reply, but always send me questions. This is the one way I get to stay in touch with a sport that has taken over 20 years of my life. Now I'm playing competitive golf for the last 7 years, but my heart is at the pool and always will be. So thank you for this opportunity, and Parthasa, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rehan, for sharing your thoughts. And I think it's very useful to for all the coaches to understand your view from swimmer's angle. So we'll take our next speaker, Veer Dhaval Khare. Good morning, Veer.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good to see you from
Yes,
your
sir.
office, I guess. So
Yeah.
for all the coaches, Veer Dhaval Khare is an Olympian in Beijing Olympic in 50, 100 and 200 freestyle. He is an Arjun awardee in 2011. He's an Asian Games medalist in 2010 in 50-meter butterfly. And you should know that he just missed 50-meter freestyle medal in the last Asian Games 2018 by 0.01 second. So it was very unfortunate, and we all expected that. And I'm sure, you know, but it was an amazing race. I've seen that race live in the TV, and he also, at present, he have achieved B cut timing. He is one of the swimmer who's very close to A cut timing for the upcoming Olympic in Tokyo. He has represented India since 2005 and till date, of course. He is holding several records in national and international level. Presently, he is working as a Tehsildar with Government of Maharashtra. We welcome Veer Dhaval Khare. Good morning, Veer Dhaval.
Morning, sir. Hi, sir. It's fantastic to be here, and I heard Rehan speak for some time, and reminds me of the times when we used to be in camps and swimming and training together. So this was when I just started out, and there's just so much I learned from my seniors, and I think I'm one of the very few fortunate swimmers who had such a great bunch of seniors. I think Sandeep and myself were really blessed in that sense, that we just got to learn so much, their work ethic, the way they worked hard, and also when we used to train with them, it never felt like they were training just to be gold medalists at the nationals. They always wanted to do something bigger and much better for the country, and I think that's where we got our motivation and mindset really from. So so I think, sir, to begin with, I've done a small presentation, and
sure, you can do. You can share your presentation.
Yes, sir.
You can go share screen.
Find it.
You can click on the share screen at the bottom middle of your screen.
Yeah,
it's a small green option.
Yeah. So yeah, can you?
Yeah, we can see it now.
Yeah.
We
so,
can
start the slideshow.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So like I've been swimming for close to 25 years, and now that I'm a senior on the Indian swimming scene, I still see a lot of problems that the current swimmers are facing, and some problems that I faced when I was a much younger swimmer as well. And so it's not like I'm trying to tell the coaches how they're supposed to coach, but a lot of the swimmers and the youngsters really need to understand what the coach expects from the swimmer. So to give you an example, let's say if you are trying to correct a swimmer, and if you want the swimmer to have a better catch or a better underwater kick or a better start. So the thing is, because swimming is such an unnatural sport, it's very difficult for a swimmer to correct himself or herself and to apply a new skill set or improve on technique that they have been doing. So even for a swimmer who's been swimming for 5-6 years, I still see people who don't know how to catch or don't know how to do an underwater kick properly. And the thing is, how do you improve on that? So I still face this problem today, where if any of you all have seen me swim, my technique in the 50 freestyle is not the best technique there is. And rather than just asking me or telling a swimmer what you need them to do, or what is expected from them, or catch in a particular way, or apply power from a particular muscle. So I think it really would help a swimmer to understand if they knew what they were supposed to feel. So to begin with, most of the coaches here are swimmers, and I don't know if any of you all ever had fantastic feel for the water. So how do you explain something to a swimmer who struggles to get a good feel, or who struggles to catch the water and become a faster swimmer? So, it's very, very important for a coach to maybe educate himself or herself, or, to talk to other coaches so that, they can learn and how they can better explain to their swimmers how something needs to be done. So, if you want to have a better catch, how to feel on your hand, or how you're supposed to pitch your palm in the water, or how, your hips need to move when you're doing an underwater kick. So these are the things that really a swimmer needs to understand, and a swimmer needs to know how he's supposed to feel, how he's supposed to do it. And thankfully, we've got a lot of tools now, like, underwater videos, and we can always see underwater videos of other swimmers of how they are doing things. And, we can always watch and learn. Unfortunately, we couldn't do that 10 years ago. There was no, even to watch somebody swim or train, we had to import DVDs or go abroad to learn them. So it's always good to want to learn new things. There's a lot of things available on YouTube, on maybe the ASCA website, so wherever you can find the stuff that will help you better understand on how you have to communicate a particular skill set or some instructions to the athlete. So the first thing, like the first point and the first problem I think the athlete goes through is knowing what the coach expects from him or her, and how to improve on it, and how that is going to help him or make him change the feel of the water when he's swimming. So then the next one is communicating with the coach. When I was growing up, when I was a much younger swimmer, I got yelled at and hit on the pool deck for, making mistakes and, not doing or bunking or whatever it may be. I'm quite sure most of the swimmers and most of the coaches listening to this, they must have gotten hit or yelled at quite a bit when they were much younger. And, when you yell at a swimmer or when you hit a swimmer, that doesn't really send a positive message. And, a swimmer is always going to be very scared to approach a coach, who is very aggressive or who is yelling all the time. And, you're not going to build that bond that a coach and a swimmer should have. So if you have a very good bond, it's very easy to get through to them. And it also makes a big difference, if you talk to every swimmer, if you ask them how they are feeling today, or, and if you're willing to accommodate and adjust to what they need mentally or physically. And also I feel it's very important for the parents to talk to the coach, and for the coach to talk to the parents, because, it's, I think these are the two biggest pillars that are in an athlete's life. And, I don't think there should be any sort of conflict between the coaches and the parents, even though, I know some parents can be very difficult to work with, and it's always easier for a coach if the parent is not involved on the scene at all. And I know a lot of coaches, for a lot of coaches, this is the biggest problem, where, a parent is over enthusiastic or is very nosy, or, he wants to do everything, or he wants to know too much. So it's very important to, establish some set of rules of, you know, what the coach expects from the parents, and how the parent can get in touch with the coach if there's any problem. And the coach always has to be willing to you know, talk to the swimmer if he has any personal problems, or any problems relating to swimming. I think the most senior of the swimmers, even Rehan and Shikha, and you know, most of the other seniors, they've gotten to such a high level only because, you know, they had that special bond with their coaches. You know, if you don't have that sort of trust, or if you don't have that sort of a connection with your coach, if your coach is not accessible, or if you know, you're shut down, and if you're not communicating with the coach, that improvement and that magic is never going to happen. So swimming, even though it's an individual sport, you need to work with your coach, and your coach needs to work with you and your parents, because you know, it's only when these three elements come together and you work well together, it's much easier for the coach to get the best out of an athlete. So next point, yeah, so this is one of the biggest problems most of the coaches and the swimmers go through and deal with all the time. So dealing with pressure, and pressure mostly comes out of racing, and I think there's pressure only if, you know, you're worried about the outcome too much. If you're, you know, expecting, if you're thinking only about the result before going into a race, or when you're preparing, or even before walking to the block, if you're thinking about, you know, what time am I going to get, am I going to win a medal, and what is the end result going to be like. So only thinking about the result is always going to add pressure. So, you know, how a coach encourages, or how a coach gets through to the swimmer to, you know, deal with the pressure, and how can the coach help the athlete bring the best out of the athlete physically by, you know, kind of, I wouldn't say manipulating, but maybe guiding the swimmer to you know, think about the process, and, you know, keep encouraging racing, and, you know, keep telling them racing should be fun. And if there are a few aspects, like, you know, if a coach thinks that a swimmer needs to work more on the start, or the underwater, or a breathing pattern, or the turn, so I think it's always good to have the coach tell me, or you know, if Nihasa told me that he wants me to work better on my underwater kick, and, you know, maybe he wants me to focus more on the last 15 meters, so that would take my mind off the end result. Like, it is you know, it's only natural to have the fear of performance, and the fear of the result, you know, going on in the back of your mind. But then it's the responsibility of the coach, I feel. And yeah, I wouldn't say parents, because parents always want only a gold medal or a record. So I think it's more so that it's a responsibility of the coach to, you know, maybe keep the parents away, and then keep the mind where it needs to be, and you know, keep telling the swimmer, you know, what they need to be focusing on, what they need to be working on, what needs to be done, what mistakes they've done in the past. And, you know, it's better to you know, keep reminding them not to do a particular mistake, or do something that will help them swim faster, rather than thinking about a particular time or winning the medal. Mental preparation is also a big aspect for any swimmer. And, you know, we train for the entire year, and most of the seniors, you know, we have only one competition in the whole year to prepare for, which is the senior nationals, like, other than all the international competitions. And when you train for 11 months, and you let's say you taper down for a month, and you have only 1 month to, you know, to think about the competition, so it suddenly becomes a very daunting task. Like, it becomes so scary that, you know, you've put in so much hard work, and then 11 months of hard work, and it's all going to come down to that 22 seconds or 50 seconds or whatever, 2 minutes or less. And then suddenly the pressure starts building. So, you know, throughout the year, throughout the whole preparation process, and throughout the whole training period, the coach needs to prepare a swimmer mentally to, you know, deal with pressure. Or, you know, so personally, we do a lot of race pace sets, so I never have an off season. So for me, off season is complete off. And whenever I get back to training, it's always speed, it's always things that I can do, or I need to do to improve my 50 or my 100. And so I'm basically, doing race-based training for the entire year. So, for me, mental preparation is so easy because every week or every 2 weeks, we almost have kind of like a 50-meter or a 100-meter time trial. And then, it keeps my mind in the zone that, I need to be competitive. I need to be, prepared physically and mentally for the entire year. And there's no downtime. So I think it's very important for coaches to, to include maybe time trials once in a month, or if possible, once in maybe 2-3 weeks, to keep that competitive edge and get that fear of racing out of an athlete's head. And I think most of the American swimmers, Australian swimmers, and also some of the Europeans, they are the best in the world because they race so often. So we've always heard that, they race almost every weekend or every other weekend. And what that does is, it prepares them mentally to prepare for the big race. So if you have a big race once in a year or once in 2 years, so it's suddenly going to seem like it's the most important competition of your life. And when that thought gets into your head, there's more chances that, you're going to end up ruining that race. So, that should not happen. Keep your mind competitive. Don't let your mind wander off. And, preparing yourself mentally throughout the year is very, very important, as per my opinion. And also keep mentioning pointers to your swimmers that, work on good turns, stroke rate, breathing, because these are the things that, we do so many things repetitively. Like, if you're training in a short course pool, if you do a 4-kilometer workout, so that's more than 100 turns you're doing. If you're going to do way that, when you get to your race, if you're doing a 400 freestyle, all your turns are going to be bad. And if you get more tired, your turns are going to be even worse. And that's going to add up to maybe 8 or 10 seconds to your time. So, small things that are going to make a big difference, that those need to be emphasized on and they need to be worked on regularly. And, things like good turns, breathing pattern, and underwater kicks. So those things need to be worked on every single day, every single session. So I unfortunately, understood the significance of this much later. So when I was much younger, I wouldn't work on good turns. I would not do underwater kicks. I started doing this only after my comeback in 2017 and 18. So that's when I actually, I improved my 50 freestyle time by 10 fractions after 10 years, because, I understood the importance of small things. And if a coach can, get through to an athlete and help them understand the importance of such small things and their relevance to the end result, so I think a swimmer can work on them for the entire year. 2 years later, a swimmer should not think, I should have maybe worked on better turns or better underwater, and maybe I would have been a much faster swimmer. So mental preparation throughout the year is very, very important. Dealing with failure. Yeah, so this is the biggest problem in India. You don't win a medal at the nationals, you don't qualify for the nationals, your parents think, you're never going to be a good swimmer. And, they make you quit swimming and get into academics full time. So, before the parents, I think the ball starts rolling from the athlete. So, if you have a bad race, like if an athlete has a bad race, so the way the coach handles the athlete is, I think, one of the most important things. Because, there are going to be a lot of failures. There are going to be times where you don't get your medal, or when you don't hit your target. But, that does not mean that it's never going to happen. So, it's better to start preparing the athlete from the beginning itself to mentally prepare them to handle with failure. Because, to be realistic, even Michael Phelps didn't win all the races he swam. So, he had some losses, he had a lot of wins. But, I think he learned a lot from his losses, and that's why he could win for that much longer, and that's why he could swim that much better. So, a better way to prepare them is, give them challenging sets where, you think that they'll really have to struggle to meet those particular target timings, or, whatever target you set. So make sure, like, sometimes it's okay if they fail. It's okay if they fail 30 to 40% of the times, but, they need to be familiar with that feeling. So if they're the fastest swimmer in the group, it's okay if you put them into a much faster group. So just so they can, race with somebody faster and maybe lose a few times every week or every month. regular time trials are very good because, it gives you a reality check of how fast you're actually swimming or how fast you need to be swimming and what needs to be worked on. What's very important is, the talk after a bad race. So, I've had, I think, 70 to 80% of my races have been bad races. And so the only amount of good races that I swam are the ones who, like, those races really made me who I am today, winning at the Asian Games or Commonwealth Youth Games, qualifying for the Olympics. I think those are maybe 10% of my entire career. So, I worked with Nihar for 15 years. And so the one thing that really made me the swimmer who I am today is, how he spoke to me or how he dealt with my emotions. And he always knew what, I wanted to hear after a bad race. And, I keep analyzing the races where I didn't really get my targets or didn't swim as well as I wanted to. And, whenever I used to think back, he always said, maybe you need to have better turns. You didn't have a good breathing pattern, didn't work on your underwater. Your competitor had better turns, or, whatever it was. So these are the things that really, gave me hope that even though I had a bad race, I had so many other things that, I could improve on. Maybe, if I have better turns in my next race, I'll be maybe a second or two faster. So, those positive rays of hope when, you think your world is ending, you've had a very bad race. And so you need those positive rays of hope where, you think to yourself that, this can be done because, I've done so many mistakes. I've still swum so fast. And I think that really differentiates the good coaches from the best coaches, because the best coaches always know, what to say to the swimmer, and they always communicate with the swimmers better. And I think that really needs to be changed. And I think most of the younger coaches and the new coaches, they need to, maybe pick the brains of the senior coaches, like Partha sir, Nihar sir, Pradeep sir, and really, they need to understand the mentality of how a coach deals with problems. And the thing is, I think sometimes I feel bad for them because, they have to leave all their problems aside and then, deal with mental problems of 10 different swimmers. So, it really is a good skill set to have. And, this is definitely going to, like, a coach who deals with failure better or helps the athlete deal better with failure, he's definitely going to have much better swimmers at the nationals or at an international level. And yeah, keep teaching them to learn from their mistakes. So bad race, tell them the things they did wrongly, and then, make sure they remind them for the entire year, and they need to work on them regularly, and definitely the next race will be much better. Yeah, I'm at the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vidyaval. You can remove the slide if you want.
Yes. Yeah.
So now we are going to take some questions, and the sequence are going to be like this. We are going to put some general questions for all of you, and we are going to put some specific question to a particular speaker. If it is general, the sequence will be Shikha, then Rehan, then me.
Yes.
And of course, so I'll start with the first question, and followed by Monal sir will be putting some question. So my first question to all of you is, as an age grouper, when you're swimming in age group, what was your main objective? Is it your motor skill development, or do you want to improve your endurance, or do you totally want to focus on racing? So what was your objective when you're an age grouper? Not at senior level, of course. So Shikha, would you like to start with?
Sure. I mean, I'm guessing age group means all the way to 17, 18. Because when I was swimming, the age groups were different, and one year they just decided to switch everything up. So, but anyway, I think my main goal as an age group swimmer was just to keep improving every day and just be better than I was the previous day. That was really the goal. And I don't know how many people know, but all the way up till 2000, in fact, in the year 2000, I swam. There was no 1500 free for the girls, so I swam 50 all the way to 800 free, and those were my events. I was a distance swimmer till the 2000 Olympics, and I used to swim the 50 and the 800 on the same day. And I broke the national record and got the best Indian performance for the 50 and the 800 on the same day. So, I mean, I was really focused on nothing and yet everything. And, you know, it was really just having fun, just getting better than you were the previous day. It wasn't that I want this time for the 800 and this time for the 50 and I'm only going to be doing sprints or anything. I think we touched upon this in one of the previous sessions, you know, like have athletes, have swimmers, one, enjoy the sport, have fun, and also, you know, do multiple events and not just focus and specialize at a young age. And so for me, that is so true. And that was my experience as well. So I kind of want to use this time to kind of emphasize on that. I qualified for the 50 free in 2004, or in 2003 for 2004, but till 2000, I was an 800 freestyle swimmer. So I think the key is really having fun, and you know, everything else comes at a time. Your endurance by default improves because you're an age grouper, you're growing, your body's changing. You're going to get faster sprint wise because again, your body's changing. So I think, in my opinion, the goal would be focus on having fun and getting better every day.
Thank you. Rehan, would you like to highlight?
I think that as an age group athlete, of course, I wasn't thinking as much as my coaches were. So my objective was my coach's objective. But when I look back, the one thing that I spent a lot of time on personally was improving my own technique. Okay, so yes, there were a lot of workouts where we would do technique specific work, we would do drill specific work, but then your coach is standing and he's not coaching only you, he's coaching 50 other people. So he may not necessarily have the time to look at your technique, you know, at every point in each workout. So what I did through my training sessions is, in my mind, I would go into the pool deciding that today I'm going to work on one thing. And it's going to be, for example, only turns. Today I'm going to be good at, you know, only freestyle, the way I recover, the way I enter, the angle at which my breaststroke kick works. And I had learned this actually from Hakeemuddin, who's another Olympian, where he had said that there are days and this is for teenagers who are here, he had said there are days when you don't want to go to the pool and you don't want to train. But even on that day, you want to enter the pool deciding that you want to do one thing correctly for your sport. And that's an attitude I had on days I wasn't interested in training, because we are all human. There are days when we don't want to train. So I personally worked a lot on technique of each stroke, and then, like I did do even today for my athletes, I broke each stroke and each race down into multiple bits, and then I would work specifically for that. Another thing, and this is because Shikha mentioned that I raced one event and then I did very well at another at the end of my career. I started my career as a breaststroker. I ended my career, and for the better part of 10 years of racing the medley, breaststroke was my weakest leg. So the point I'm making is that kids are growing constantly. Their muscles are developing. They've got things happening physically with their bodies. So as parents and as coaches, never limit your child's mind, especially during age group swimming, and say, you are going to be good at this particular event. I have parents coming to me today and saying in front of the child, he's very good at freestyle and 100 backstroke, but he's so bad at 200 fly, so you should see his stroke. You know, so you're almost auto-suggesting to that child that he's a horrible 200 butterflyer, where in fact, you know, 10 years from now, that is the event he could excel at. So do not limit your child's mind. Try everything, race everything. There are formats of national games where you have an option to race multiple events. As a teenager, when you're younger, encourage your child or your athlete to race everything. And last bit, coming to both Shikha and Veerdaval said, remember to have fun. This is one thing that I would love to, I don't know if I'll get a chance to say this later, but I'd love to see happen for Indian swimming, where I believed that Nihar sir was brilliant at leading an athlete into a race. Pradeep sir was as well. Pradeep sir was amazing at setting a base foundation. And for swimmers of my time, and Shikha, Nisha, all of us will agree, we always wish that at some point Nihar sir and Pradeep sir would come together and train, and we would have the best of both worlds. But it can't be, you know, possible other than at national camps. So what I feel is that today, if there are young coaches and are coaches that are able to do this within your city, have training, set up training camps, mini week training camps where swimmers from different teams train together, and not just wait for a national camp where the best swimmers of the country come and train together. That way you've got a situation where you're having fun. Maybe you can do inter-club relays. And these are just ideas that if I was coaching full time, I would definitely have in my swim team. Unfortunately, I'm not. So I use this platform to share mine.
Thank you, Rehan. Veerdaval?
So yeah, so I had kind of a very different childhood and a very different age group stories. Like when I was swimming in the age group, for me it was all about winning. So I used to hate swimming as a sport because my father forced me into it. But you know what I used to love is I used to love racing. I used to love winning. And so when I was in age groupers, I started off as a breaststroker. So before that, you know, Aaron and I, we go way back, and he used to beat me in everything. And the first time I beat Aaron was in breaststroke. So I decided I was going to be a breaststroker. So I started doing breaststroke and never made it to the nationals. And luckily, I got into the nationals in a freestyle event, and then I became a freestyler. And yeah, so for me, it was just about winning all the time. And I think Rehan will remember. So the first camp we were in, sir, and I was not a butterfly. And then I challenged Bharat, or Bharat challenged me for something. And Bharat had won a gold medal in the 100 fly in Group 1. And so Pradeep sir, you know, had us swim a time trial in the camp, and I ended up beating Bharat by doing a 1 minute, and I've never done butterfly in my life. So after that, I started doing butterfly as well. So yeah, the one thing that always motivated me is racing and winning.
Thank you, Peter. So Monal sir, would you like to join with some questions, please?
Certainly, Partha. Thank you. And before that, let me acknowledge Shika's extremely candid discussion on various very important topics related to safe sport. As you all know, there is also one more session coming up, and I appreciate Shika having, brought some important topics to light. And I hope that the coaches present have taken note of that and shall be conscious about what she is trying to tell you. Coming to the questions, again, there is a generic question. So I would request everybody, whoever wishes to ask specific questions to the presenter, may please mention the name of the presenter. So for the moment, let me take another general question. Was there a point in your career when you felt like quitting, and how did you deal with it? And did you share it with anyone, and or did you keep it to yourself? So once again, the order, as Partha had mentioned, Shika, Rehan, we.
Sure. I don't know if it was the time that I was ready to quit, but I know it was probably one of the more challenging times in my career. This was back in 2006, and I had a shoulder surgery, and I was literally out of the pool with my arm strapped to the side for, you know, 3.5 months. And this was just a couple of months before the Asian Games in 2006. And so for me, that 3 months was definitely one of the most challenging aspects of it. And, like I mentioned, just communication and being able to approach your coach and have those discussions. So, I mean, apart from my parents who, saw me at home, just literally just sitting around at home doing nothing, there was absolutely nothing that I could do but sit on the bed or sit on the chair. I had to actually sit up and sleep. I couldn't lie down because I had stitches on the back. But obviously, Nihar sir was my coach back then, and he was, we would communicate with him as to how I'm feeling and, talk about what I can do. And, it's a similar situation to now, really, where everyone's at home and just not able to do anything that you had planned. And the Asian Games was a target meet for me. But, we talked about it, just, take it one step at a time. And when you do come back, you still have those few weeks or those few months, although it's way less than what we wanted, but it was still a time that we had. And I think, going back to just how do you, fine tune and how do you customize a workout, like Rehan said, to that athlete, to their immediate needs, and not just go with, because typically 2 months before an Asian Games, you'd have a certain set of workouts. For me, I literally, the first day, I could not even move my arm. So my first workout, I swam only with my right arm. Like, that's not something you expect 2 months before an Asian Games. So for me, that was probably one of the more challenging times. And, I'm pretty sure in that times there were moments where I was, questioned whether I could or could not go back and do it all again. But that was the moment for me.
Thank you, Shika, for sharing that. Rehan?
For me, I think it was definitely 2004, where I had my whole swimming career had led to a point where I felt I was good enough to qualify for the Athens Olympics. And I got to a point where in the same event, in the 200 butterfly, I was 2 seconds off the time. But on race day, rather than like Vedaval said, focusing on your process, I focused so much on the result and the repercussions of failure that I got very, very tense and stressed out, and I ended up swimming even slower than I had already, swum at that point in my career. So for me, I let pressure take over, and I, with all the wrong questions in my mind, like what if I fail? What are my parents? What are my coaches going to say? What is the press going to say? Swim friends, school friends, and everything that was negative is what was on my mind. And I failed at that race, and then I came back and felt that I needed to quit. But the turning point for me was really, again, Shikha mentioned this, Vedaval mentioned this, that I had a team around me that was so strong, which was my parents and then again my coaches. So there was a point, Viru mentioned trust. There was a point where Pradeep sir met me and he asked me, Rehan, if you feel that, my program may not be good enough for you to qualify for 2008, why don't you try and train abroad? So at that point I told him, that's why if I'm going to qualify for the Olympics now, I will qualify with you, or I won't qualify. Now at that, when I said that, I didn't know whether his program would eventually get me there. But the point I'm making is that there was a huge trust in the program I was training in, which is why I feel I succeeded. And for swimmers, parents, there are, Viru mentioned of how you need to trust your coach and you need to have conversations with your coach. If there are parents and swimmers, if you all do not believe in the training program you are training at, first have a conversation with your coach. And if you still don't believe, you must move. Okay, because so a coach's life is 50 plus years. A swimmer's life is maybe a decade, 2 decades if he's lucky. And I really believe that no training session or no season should be spent where you are doubting your ability or doubting your coach's ability. And we are all human. Everybody makes mistakes. But the reason I succeeded is because I put my entire trust in Nihar sir in my age group years, and then in Pradeep sir in my leading up to my qualifying, which was the turning point, and which is why I continued swimming when I hit my greatest, failure or setback back in 2004.
Thank you, Rehan.
Sir,
go with that?
Yeah, yeah, I did go through that phase, and I actually quit for some time as well. So in 2012, when I didn't make the Olympic team, a better opportunity came my way. I had the chance to join as an officer in the Maharashtra government, and I thought, if this has happened now, it can happen again in the future. And it's that uncertainty I could not live with. So I joined the government. But then after that, after a few years, I really regretted that decision. It was a momentary lapse, maybe in my judgment. I was just too emotional about not making the Olympic team. But, in 2016, 17, after I made my comeback, I was really, so enthusiastic, even though I was like 4 or 5 years older, but just that enthusiasm dragged me and, made me a better swimmer in 2018. So I think, so when you start doubting yourself, it's always better to, communicate with your coach. I remember Nihar sir telling me, don't do it, don't join the government. It's okay, you get better opportunities in the future. But I wasn't willing. I was just too emotional, and I think emotionally I maybe made a bad choice at that time. But yeah, so yeah, I decided to quit. I quit. I came back. I think next time might be for good when I decide to quit.
Well, hopefully we won't see that day very soon.
I hope so, sir.
Indian swimming is expecting a lot from you. And this question is addressed to Shikha. How did you manage academics at such a high level along with your high level participation in sport?
I didn't have social media back then. No, but I mean, in all honesty, I mean, if you think about it, your training day is, your morning session 2-3 hours, whatever that might be, your evening session 2-3 hours. You've maybe got a gym session a few days a week. And world over, athletes are competing, are training, are swimming, and also going to school. It's not that hard. That's the honest, truth. And if you think about it, like just talk to your swimmers now and see like how much time do they spend on Instagram, how much time do they spend on Facebook, even if it's 30-40 minutes. Instead of that, have them open a textbook and read. You know, the syllabus that typically you go through the year, I mean, it's catered towards, you know, 300 people or 100 people, whatever the class size might be, learning. Everyone learns at different paces, and I know for a fact that swimmers learn pretty quick. And so what somebody gets done in a classroom for an hour, you as a swimmer just at home, or, you know, if you're getting help or tuition or whatever it is, you can learn it much faster. One, because your time management skills are, you know, way better. You have the ability to just switch off and switch on and focus, something which a lot of people lack who are not part of sport. And I think those are like very key aspects to how I was able to do both. And obviously, you know, there's an element of having support from the right people, which for me was Jain College, where, you know, I was there for like 10 years, and you know, having them allow me to go and compete, go for national camps and just be out for a month. But then I would come back, and doing biology, I mean, there are labs that I need to go to, and there are experiments that I need to run. So those would be given to me, you know, as special permission. So it's, again, boils down to communication and, you know, telling your teachers and, you know, the principal that this is what I'm trying to achieve, and have them communicate with you and you communicate with them. And Sandeep mentioned the same thing, that, you know, his college allowed him to do that as long as his marks or percentages wouldn't drop beyond a certain point. And that's the case world over. And that was the case for me as well, where, you know, they give you responsibility and they give you that freedom, but you have to choose to, you know, be responsible for that responsibility that they're giving you. If you're just going to take it and throw it away, they're not going to give it again, not to you or to the swimmers or athletes that come after you. So I think it's a responsibility when you do get that freedom. And so, you know, training the coaches, training the athletes to understand that dynamic between school and college. And I would definitely put emphasis on both, simply because, you know, the reason I quit swimming was because I got injured and I knew there was no coming back from that one. And it happened overnight. And so literally overnight, I had to switch gears into now being a professional. And if you're not prepared, that transition phase, which we can potentially talk about later, can be very difficult if you don't have that plan B or a solid base for something else, whatever that might be. So I think it's really time management. Talk to your athletes about what is your goal, what are you trying to achieve. Talk to them right from age group level, you know, as to what that long term looks like. And not everything is in the moment on social media, unfortunately. But you know, so talking them through that process and a plan, not just in sport, but even outside of that, I think is extremely crucial. And that's the way I handled it. And that would be my recommendation to anyone.
Thank you, Shikha. That's I'm sure that's very insightful for all the coaches. And the next question is to Rehan, the coach asking you, or maybe a parent, I don't know. Can years of bad technique be corrected?
It can, but I think it's very difficult to do, because I'm not sure when you say years, how many years you're mentioning. There are kids that are 14 years old today that work with me just specifically on a 2-hour training session, and just for technique change. And they've been swimming for 5 or 6 years with wrong technique. And it's extremely hard to fix this. So yes, it can be corrected, but it takes up a very large amount of your training time given to change this technique. So, you know, Viru mentioned that today I feel in my 50 freestyle, I have some things that I do well, some things that I do. So in the same way, if over your age group training schedule, if you have neglected training for technique and more drill work, you are going to suffer at a later stage. Yes, it can be corrected, but it's even harder in my experience when the swimmer is older and older, because it's bad technique that settles into the child's, you know, the swimmer's muscle memory, where automatically he does the wrong thing. And then if you're doing those hours and hours of training and he's working very hard, he's actually hurting himself because he's working very hard at the wrong thing. So this is why I said in the beginning that instead of saying today I want to complete 8 kilometers, you know, if you have limited amount of time, maybe on some days choose to do less yardage, but give the child more technique work, especially at a young age. So his age group swimming has a lot to do with proper and correct technique, and not you know, get to a point where at 19 he's got he's powerful, he's strong, has a great race skill, but his technique is so bad that it, at that point when he's old and he's ready to do other things that are important in training, you're spending time on foundation stuff and basic level stuff. And this is not something that you just look at and you change. You have to spend time understanding the swimmer to see what he needs to do, because on, through textbooks and when we learn online, there's a very general definition to proper technique, proper entry in freestyle, but it's not necessary that a Veerdaval may swim in a certain way and a Sandeep may swim in a certain way and a Shikha may swim freestyle in a certain way, because they are built differently. They have strength in different muscles. So if you are correcting the technique of your swimmer, don't just stand on deck and watch him in a workout and say, oh, listen, you're doing this wrong and this is what you need to do. Spend a little more time on it. If you're going to make a change, find out where the weak muscles are, because wrong technique is not normally not just because the swimmer is being careless or lazy. It is because he has certain muscles in his body that are weak, that are letting him down and not allowing him to do the right technique. Or it could be a physical issue where he does not have the flexibility to, do the entry the way you want him to do, or this body position, or again, a strength issue. So rather than, yes, correct your kid, or your swimmer, but correct him in a detailed way and do your research before you decide to correct him. Because if it's just going to be a one-off thing, it's not going to be of any help. So you decide to correct somebody's butterfly, make sure you talk to his fitness coach, figure out where his muscles are, weak, and what part of his body is letting him down, and then get all that right, and then finally make a technique correction. This is the way I would, do it with my swim.
Thank you very much, Rehan. This and what Veerdaval said and what Sandeep previously said in his session, it all ties in, and it's very important that the coaches understand this, because it's coming from 3 Olympic level swimmers. They are the best of the best that the country had to produce. And all of them are telling the coaches, don't just write the workout. Look at what is happening with the swimmer and explain what that workout should feel like. So in many different words, essentially what is the thing coming out to you is that it's not about just writing that workout on the board. It's about, looking at what the swimmer should be feeling in the workout and engaging the swimmer with the talk. The next question is to Veerdaval. Do you think a weekly session of theory and visualization would be beneficial for age group swimmers rather than just swim workouts?
The theory maybe not so much. Visualization maybe. I think that can probably help them, deal with racing and the pressure of performance slightly better. But swimming is such a sport where, whatever you do outside the pool, you need to do the right things in the pool. So you can do very good gym session, very good physiotherapy, very good visualization, anything and everything outside. But, until you do good stuff in the pool, you're not going to get the result. So I think visualization might help, but theories are maybe not, maybe for the coaches.
Partha, have you
been able to
identify questions?
So I'll start with Rehan. Rehan, there's a coach called Sundaresh. He have asked this question, and I've seen the same tune of question by a swimmer also, Aryan Panchal. He have asked the similar thing. In a lot of cases, what happens is swimmers may not be fortunate enough to do pretty well in education. Neither they are fortunate enough to have financial support pretty well. And even we have seen that despite of being a good swimmer, they may not be successful to do good in job career. They may not be able to get good jobs also. So the question arises to swimmer or the parents, what after swimming, or after swimming what? And this is some question which for coaches it's difficult to answer. So for you as a swimmer, what do you think? Give your thought on this, please.
So I'll start off by saying that I think that Shikha, Veerdaval, Sandeep, me, Nisha, and Hakeem, the Olympians that are there, all of us have been very lucky that, of course, Veeru is still swimming, but we managed to make a very successful transition between sport and then our next career, where I'm doing a bunch of things. Veerdaval's got a great job. Shikha's got a great job in the US. Sandeep's working in Bombay, and I mean everybody is quite settled in their lives, right? And the reason we are settled is because we didn't swim till the age of 16 and then got our scholarship to study abroad and then quit. The reason we've all been successful is because we've been in it and we invested in it for the long run. And I understand that somebody with cannot afford the sport as much, it is going to be a struggle. But the question that I think the coach and the swimmer is asking is it worth it to stay in the sport for longer? And I feel that if you have consistent effort, discipline, and you're with the right training team, it is worth it, because once you reach a national level, okay, you have already invested in the next part of your career, because there are government jobs that are available today to athletes that are performing well on a national level. I have personally, some of my closest friends, I'm not going to name them, have been from, not great backgrounds money-wise. Some have come from, rural areas of India, and who could not speak, a proper sentence, put together a proper sentence of English. But it is because of their achievements in sport that today they bring in a salary, and they will always bring in a salary, even if they retire from sport, because of swimming. And it's not necessary that they would, you mentioned they may not be good in academics. It's not necessary that they would be able to bring in this sort of a salary that supports their families if they just decided to do academics. So yes, it is extremely hard, and it's a very, depressing thing. Even when I remember several years ago, Vidawal said, I read in an interview that I have to quit and now I have to find get to a job. That somebody who is an Olympian and an Asian Games medalist even has to make this decision in this country. That I can swim, but I need to now look at the future. It is heartbreaking. Even for me, I mean, I always came from with God's blessings, a privileged background. I could have swum for another 4 years, but at some point in my career, I had to decide, okay, now it's enough. Now I need to move on. I need to have a family. I need to support my family and move on to the next stage. But if it is, the question is it worth swimming? And what next after swimming? If you invest enough time, you will get to a national level, okay, with the right coaches and the right team, and that will bring you a job. And then if you become an Olympian like we do, it is a tag that we carry for life. Okay, and this is an Olympian and Arjuna Awardee tag that all of us have. It holds us, first of all, it builds your respect in society, not only in the sporting fraternity. More jobs are available to you, whether it is a government or it is part of another swim team, or, there are so many swimmers that are becoming coaches today because they've had so much experience over so many years in the sport. So understand that when you're swimming, even if you can't totally afford it, you are already investing in your future. There are, every swim team that has a swimmer that's done well at some level, I'm sure that if that swimmer came back once he's retired, that swim team will take him in as a coach too. So it's not that I was a swimmer and now is it worth it, and if I quit, then what next? And the mindset has to change, that while you are swimming, you are already investing, in your future. And no matter what level you're swimming at, it is an investment, because the more hours you put into the pool, the smarter hours you put into the pool. Yes, you're investing money. You are going to gain benefit from it at some point. And this is the last thing I'll say, when I quit swimming and I switched to golf. Golf is a very, very expensive sport, and everything I earn from the other things I do, I am reinvesting into my golf. I have made all of 0 rupees from golf till today, and it's been 7 years I'm in the sport, and you can understand how much money I've put into it. This is one of the reasons I don't have a family today, because all my savings are, spent on golf balls. So the point is that I am still investing, and it takes a lot of risk, and it takes a lot of courage to say no to the job that you're getting at that point in time and continue the sport. But more often than not, if you continue on, you show your coach that you're able to invest, you're able to take the risk, and then that same coach will possibly turn around and say, look, you've given 20 years of your life to the sport, come back and work with me as a coach. Pradeep sir did this to me when I was in 2010 in Dubai. He told me, when he could see that, my swimming is tapering off and I'm getting a little older, I'm getting a little tired. He said, if you ever quit swimming, remember, you can always come back to BAC and coach with me. So if you're swimming, you're not only investing in that national medal or that national record, you're investing in your future.
Thank you, Rehan.
Add a point to that, like what Rehan said, investing in the future. And that's something that I think Mr. Rashti also brought up a few days ago, where he said, not every swimmer will become an Olympian, and that is a known fact. like not every swimmer that comes through the door, through the funnel, is going to be that Olympian or be that national champion. But what you're really trying to do is, even if someone that, comes in and, like Rehan said, invest in yourself. Investment is not just in the sport. Investment is about who you are and the qualities that the sport teaches you. Things like time management, things like being able to goal set, things like, just being able to handle pressure. All of those, values and that you learn as an athlete, those take you forward even outside of your sport. Those are still things that I utilize today. I have friends who never won a national medal, who used to swim with me. They used to put in the hours, put in that investment, put in the time, effort, everything, but they never won a national medal. And that is the reality. You're always going to have some of those on your team, but not for lack of effort. Just how it is. But those people come back and are champions of your sport in society, and that's what you want. And that's one statement that he made a few days ago. Like, you want that group of people to be champions, so you want them to enjoy it, you want them to have a positive experience, whether they're swimming for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And everything that you do day in and day out in those 3 hours of your swim practice is an investment. In some shape or form, it's an investment. So don't always just focus on what medal have I won, or those aspects of it, but what have I learned, and how can I kind of use that knowledge in whatever I do next, whether it's a job, whether it's a swim coach, whether it's, another sport. And I think we don't stress on that enough. We always value or look at achievement as a medal, and that's, in my opinion, not the way to do it. You don't start off that way, because that's always going to be the focus. The focus has to be grow yourself, invest in yourself. Okay. And in whatever shape or form, invest in yourself. That will come back to help.
Thank you, Shikha. So I'll start with a question for you also. In India, we have seen that many top swimmers or many excellent swimmers in girls segment, they leave swimming at the age of 16 to 18. And coming back to yesterday, I was talking to Bob Bauman, and he also feels that the same scenario happens in most of the Asian countries and Australia also. So, but America doesn't have this. So, staying in US, what are your thoughts on that, and how do you think we can improve that area?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is just the system that's set up, because in the US, there's high school sport is very big. College sport is very big. In fact, some of the high schools and some of the college programs are actually way more competitive and way more, advanced than regular club programs. And if you think about high school, that's literally from, age of, 15, 16, that's when you go into high school. And that's the drop-off time that we see in India. So it's really about being able to, allow that athlete to do both. And obviously, I also mentioned, certain external factors also as far as the Indian scenario and swimmers go. And I think it's key to look at those factors as well before, making changes to your system. So having that collaborative effort between organizations and between teams and clubs and your academic programs, I think that is step one. And then obviously creating those safe spaces for people to come and want to come in and train.
Thank you, Shikha. My question to Vidyaval, as per you, how much sporting infrastructure matters for speed development? Of course, coaching are factors, and there are many other factors, but how do you think infrastructure relates to develop athlete?
I think it makes quite a big difference. But having said that, I don't think that's the only important aspect when it comes to developing a swimmer. Having good infrastructure, having a good swimming pool, good gym, definitely, mentally it gives you that confidence that you have the best facilities, and then you can get very good kind of training in good facilities. So where I train in Bangalore at Dolphin, so for me, one part always was my starts were never good, and so the big problem was most of the swimming pools in India have concrete blocks, and I couldn't really work on my stats for most part of my career. So that way, you know, with a very good facility now, I've been able to really work and improve my stats. So yeah, for sprint training, I've really benefited from having a very good facility and having a good gym. But I think more than that, what parents and swimmers refuse to accept is, you know, more than having good infrastructure, they need to have the right kind of mindset to bring the results. So it's always easy to blame the infrastructure. We can say we don't have good swimming pools. You know, I train in a 25-meter pool, but you know, it's the same situation all over the world. Most swimmers in the US, they train in 25 yards pool for almost the entire year, and even then, they are among the fastest swimmers in the world. So yeah, having good infrastructure definitely helps, but it doesn't make as big of a difference that as most people would want to believe. So your work ethic and your commitment to the sport are the key factors which will definitely and which will most probably help you more to become a better swimmer.
Thank you, Vedaval. Monal sir, would you like to point out your questions?
I have been reminded that we are hitting our limit on the time slot, so I'll not venture into going through all the questions, or there are some jotted down. And guys, believe me, there are a lot of questions there for you, but not all of them are relevant to the topic today that you are discussing. So maybe we can wrap this up with maybe one or two things that you could have identified and that you feel you would have done differently in your career. You can share it provided you feel it will matter to somebody else.
I can go, but before that, I saw a comment here and it's been bugging me. So I really want to address this.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
It was one that said, you know, you can't change the sick mentality of such people, rather being strong and prepare yourself. I think that's the complete opposite of what I was trying to say. I think always when stuff happens, everyone just looks at, you know, the victim and says that, you know, you should change or you should be strong. That was not what I was saying. What I was really trying to communicate was create the space so that stuff like this does not happen. And all the examples that I gave, I mean, things like pinching and whatnot, I mean, I've had my own teammates do that to me. So it's really not about the sick mentality of your general public. It is also, you know, teenagers going through their emotions, and, you know, sometimes they don't know how to handle that. So teach boys, teach girls what it means to be in a safe environment, respect each other, have these conversations from the time they're 10, have this as part of your not daily, like your part of your program, right? So it's not about just the girl who has experienced something that, you know, was unpleasant and have her be the strong one. It should never happen. Okay, so I really wanted to just touch upon that because it's, again, the opposite of what I was saying. So going back to the point, what would I have done?
Let me jump in there by saying, I'm glad you noticed that question and brought it up. This is all about value systems, and our last session, one session on this series also is about safer you and safer me. And that's predominantly about, you know, the safety of the athlete and the coach and in the current ecosystem. And it's all about how we bring up our children, what value systems we teach them, how they learn to grow up as better human beings and respect women. So it's a very important topic for all sports, not only swimming. Shikha, I appreciate your courage to bring all this up. And please go ahead with the question which you were answering.
So, I mean, I don't know if I would have been able to do anything differently. We kind of, you know, went through the motions best as we could. But if there was something that I would want differently for current swimmers, would be, you know, just being able to race more, being able to have access to your, you know, support staff, which is not just your coach or your parents. I mean, there's your educators, you've got your physios, you've got your, you know, people that specialize only in recovery. And I think that's something that swimmers today lack. In terms of, you know, funding and being able to get more people into the sport and stay in the sport, you know, that's something that would have been nice to have. I've never had a sponsor. Like Rehan said, he never had a, you know, outside of the coach and parent support system. And that was the same case for me as well. So I think if I had to do things differently or advise differently now, it would be to think about sport and think about swimming holistically and all the different factors that come into making a great athlete. And that's the difference between what's currently or was in India, currently in India, and what's there in the rest of the world as far as more successful swim teams are.
So yeah. So since these are just closing statements, I'd be failing if I didn't thank one person that actually invited me to this initially. I can see him here. I finally spotted him, Mr. Nanavati. Nanavati sir is here, and he's been listening to all of us very patiently. He was a godfather to me through my entire swimming career, and always had my own my goals were like his. He always supported me through them, and so thank you to sir. And he called up and says, "Will you do this?" And I said, "Of course, anything." Right now. So that was one thing I wanted to say. Another is Shikha has constantly said that she was part of always the only girl on the swim team. So now if you brought in Sandeep into this chat, then we could possibly be one of the fastest mixed relay swim teams. Or she could come back, Rehan. No, but I just my two closing statements of what I feel I could have done differently physically is as I got older, I continued to focus too much on what I did in the pool and not what I could do outside of it in terms of physical strength. So I believe there is a point in every athlete's life where he has done enough and more yardage and meters to take him through 100-meter or a 200-meter race. But more often than not, when we go to international meets, and this is for youngsters, you look at your Americans and your Europeans, you look at the other boys on the starting blocks, and you just it hits you, so many of them. Of course, Veer Dhawan may not feel this, that as to how big they are, what fantastic frames they have. And in this isolation time, I've been looking at so many YouTube videos, because I still miss swimming every day, of how university athletes train in America. And their system is set up in the college program where everything is under one roof. Where they get out of the pool, they are in their fitness. From their fitness, they are in school, in college, which is a walk down the road in the same campus. So it's all under one roof. And their fitness is taken care of from the age of 11, where I didn't even have a trainer till I was 21. So I feel that what I would have done differently in physically is, once I passed, that teenage point, I feel I should have given more time, maybe cut down a little on the yardage I did in the pool, and worked on building my frame and my body to at least be on par with other 200 and 400 meter swimmers around the world. And mentally, and I'll close with this, there are youngsters as well here, and this is my one message to everybody, that I keep reading in the comments, thank you to eliters, thank you to elite swimmers, thank you to Olympians. Whenever I do a live on Instagram, it's always, sir, you are been an Olympian, and what will we do? There is, I think, a big gap between what athletes today feel they are doing in terms of achievement and what Olympians have done. And as a result, a lot of swimmers end their careers prematurely because they feel they've not achieved enough. And my message is that success for an athlete is always going to be relative. Okay, we are Olympians. Veer Dhawan has Asian Games medals. Sandeep has Asian Games medals. Shikha has done what she's done. Nisha has done. I've done what I've done. Above us, there are people who won at the Commonwealth Games, then the Olympics. Michael Phelps won 28 Olympic medals, and today he has only one Olympic world record left. So there is always going to be the next step and the next step and the next achievement. It never ends, and there is no end to it. And if you work your whole life to reach one goal, naturally, as athletes, we are programmed to want more. And in that whole process of wanting more, we forget that what we have to do as priority is be the best possible swimmers we can be. Or as coaches, make our swimmers the best possible swimmers they can physically be. A kid who doesn't have the tools physically or mentally to stand up against, Veer Dhawan and race a 50 free, he's not going to beat him. And if Veer Dhawan doesn't have the tools to race against, another sprinter, he's not going to beat him. But he's reached the highest point in his career and he's proud of it. I've felt that with my physical abilities, I reached the best I could be. I'm sure Shikha feels the same. So it is also a very mental thing where we constantly want to reinvent ourselves and want more success, which is great. But there has to be a point where we also celebrate who we are as coaches and as athletes. And We are very not be so hard on ourselves. And as once we start celebrating who we are more and finding more joy in our own success, we will be self-inspired to do better in the pool. So that's my closing statement.
Well said, Rehan. Can we have you?
I'd like to talk about two things. One is, as an age group, I would definitely want to, I would love to go back and keep myself from focusing on short-term goals. For me, every competition was the most important competition of my life. So I never worried about technique. My coach never asked me to, focus much on technique. Father wanted only medals. So it was all about medals. And, because of that, I sacrificed so much of my time running only behind that, and didn't really invest into developing good habits and good techniques in the water. I think if I had a better technique with my physical ability, I probably might have been a slightly faster swimmer. I don't know if a 21 or what, but maybe a 22 early. I think I should have gotten there by now, because I did a 22.5 10 years ago, and then after that I just felt like I got stuck. And what Nihar sir kept telling me for 4-5 years, it came back to haunt me that, I needed to change my technique. I needed to maybe get more distance per stroke and reduce my stroke frequency. And, I just kept saying, but I'm improving and, I'm getting faster. And, how does having a better technique matter? So, I should have maybe focused more on improving my technique rather than running behind medals. And the second thing is, not getting too happy with with maybe a state or a national medal. So the way things are in India right now, and so for most parents, national medal is like the ultimate. And when you get the national medal, they're all praises and, lots of gifts and lots of love for the kid that, you won a national medal. But, if you make the kid think that, national medal is the ultimate goal, he's not going to try harder to, maybe go on the international stage. For me, this happened in 2008 at the Commonwealth Youth Games. And, I swam pretty fast times, like a 49 and 149. And Nihar sir was extremely happy. My parents were very, very happy. All the people very close to me were so happy that I thought, okay, my life is done. This is what I was supposed to do. And, I don't need to go back and work harder because I've done what I was supposed to do. And it kind of killed the desire and the drive that I had before the Commonwealth Youth Games and the Olympics. And, to reinvent that desire, it's taken me 10 years now. So, because of the desire, I came back and worked harder to get back to the Asian Games. So I think, getting happy is good. Like winning medal at the national is good. You definitely have to be happy about getting there. But, what needs to be also addressed is how to proceed from there. That does not have to be the end of your career, or doesn't have to be the high point of your career. So I think that particular point really needs to be addressed in a proper way by the coach and the parents.
Thank you, Veer. So it's been wonderful talking to all of you, and really my personal thanks to each one of you for agreeing and coming and sharing your views and being so candid about a large part of it about your personal thoughts, personal challenges. So on behalf of Swimming Federation, Virendra Bhai, as you mentioned, Rehan is in this room today. He is a mentor to all of us, and it's an excellent session today. Thank you so much once again, and I'll let Partha do the closing statement. We're way ahead of our time limit.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There are flow of question. I must tell you that, there are flow of question which is coming, and there are a lot of appreciation message for you all. And it's been amazing to hear all you three sharing your thoughts about your challenges, sharing the suggestion for the upcoming swimmers and coaches. It's wonderful to hear you every time being the best of the best swimmers of the country, and we wish all the best for your future. I really like to thank Mr. Virendra sir for being part of it, and Monal sir, with that, thank you so much. And with that note, we are closing today. We have limitation of time, otherwise we would have addressed all the questions. Except Sai coaches, everyone can log out now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, sir.
Bye. And a good night to you, Shika.
Yes.
For sure.
Thank you, everyone. I have already taken the attendance, so everyone can leave the meeting. Thank you, everyone.